I never thought my marriage would lead me to this point, standing in my own bedroom, staring at a small drawer that held a secret I never wanted to uncover. For years, I trusted my husband with every piece of my heart, with every dream I carried. We had a home, a life that looked perfect from the outside, but perfection is fragile, and sometimes the smallest cracks spread into something you cannot hide anymore. That night started like any other. We had dinner together. He smiled the way he always did, but his eyes were somewhere else, distant, like he was carrying a whole world I could never reach. He excused himself early, saying he had work emails to finish, and I stayed behind, staring at my untouched plate, wondering why I felt so empty sitting across from someone who once made me feel whole. Over the past few weeks, little things had started to gnaw at me. His phone would buzz in the middle of the night, and he would quickly silence it, turning the screen away as if it was too bright for my eyes. He had started working late, not just once or twice, but almost every night, and when he came home, there was a faint smell I could not place, not perfume, not alcohol, something strange, something unfamiliar. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself not to be paranoid. After all, wasn't he the man who promised to protect me, the man who swore vows before God and everyone we loved? But deep inside, I felt a storm, and storms don't come without reason. One evening when he left his jacket on the chair, I noticed a small slip of paper sticking out of his pocket. My heart raced as I pulled it out. It was nothing but a receipt from a gas station, but it wasn't near his office or anywhere he should have been. It was from the other side of town, a place he had no reason to visit. I told myself again not to assume, but suspicion, once planted, grows roots that dig into your soul, and that's how I found myself in front of his drawer that night. The drawer he always kept locked. The one he said held nothing but old documents and broken watches. But that night, it wasn't locked. It slid open easily, as if the universe itself wanted me to look. Inside was a small black phone, nothing special, old enough to be forgotten, but charged, turned on, and hidden in plain sight. My breath caught. I picked it up with shaking hands, my pulse hammering in my ears. Why would he need another phone? We already shared everything. Or at least I thought we did. I pressed the button, and the screen lit up with messages, unread, waiting. My eyes darted across the words, and what I saw felt like fire crawling across my chest. Words of love, words of passion, words that weren't meant for me. He called someone beautiful, someone my only, someone, the reason I breathe. Each word was a dagger, each sentence tearing apart the fabric of the life I believed in. I dropped the phone back into the drawer and closed it, my hands trembling as if I had touched something poisonous. I couldn't breathe. The house that once felt safe now felt like a cage. My heart screamed, but no sound left my mouth. I stumbled to the bathroom, turned on the tap, and splashed water on my face, hoping I would wake up from this nightmare. But the reflection staring back at me wasn't asleep. It was wide awake and broken. I went to bed that night pretending to be asleep before he walked in. My body lay stiff under the covers, my breathing shallow as I heard the sound of his footsteps. He moved quietly, almost too quietly, as if he didn't want to disturb me. He didn't kiss me goodnight the way he used to. He didn't even whisper my name. He simply slid into bed, turned to the other side, and within minutes, I heard the slow rhythm of his breathing. I stared at the ceiling in the dark, my mind racing with the words I had just read on that phone. My heart wanted to scream at him, to shake him awake and demand answers, but my fear silenced me. What if I was wrong? What if there was some explanation? And yet, deep down, I knew there wasn't. The next morning, I watched him carefully. He smiled as if nothing had changed, poured himself coffee, and kissed my forehead before leaving for work. That kiss felt like fire on my skin, burning with the weight of betrayal. I wanted to pull away, but I let him walk out the door, his car engine fading into the distance. The moment the sound was gone, I rushed to the drawer again. The phone was still there. This time, I scrolled deeper into the messages. There were pictures. Not explicit, but intimate enough to crush me. A woman's smile, a dinner plate, a handwritten note that said, "Can't wait to see you again." Every message confirmed what my soul already feared. My husband wasn't just unfaithful, he was living another life, one I had no part of. I put the phone back, but the thought gnawed at me all day. I couldn't tell anyone, not my mother, not my best friend. How could I? It felt like admitting failure, like confessing that the life I bragged about was nothing but a lie. For days, I lived two lives. On the outside, I was the loyal wife who smiled, cooked dinner, and asked about his day. On the inside, I was drowning, replaying every laugh, every touch, every late-night call, trying to piece together the truth. My nights became sleepless. I would lie awake beside him, staring at his back, wondering whose name he whispered in his dreams. Then one night, I heard him get up quietly. He thought I was asleep, but I wasn't. I watched as he walked to the drawer, pulled out the phone, and left the room. My chest tightened as I followed his shadow down the hallway. From the kitchen, I heard his voice, low and soft, sweeter than it ever was with me. "I miss you," he whispered into the phone. "I'll see you tomorrow. I'll find a way." The glass I held slipped from my hand, shattering against the floor. He spun around, his face pale, eyes wide. For a moment, silence hung heavy between us, broken only by the sound of glass fragments settling. He opened his mouth, but no words came. I turned and walked back to our room, my legs weak, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. He followed, calling my name, begging for me to listen, but I couldn't. I locked the bathroom door and slid to the floor, tears streaming down my face as his fists pounded against the wood. The next morning, he acted as if nothing had happened. He sat at the table, sipping his coffee, pretending the cracks weren't there, pretending the glass hadn't shattered, pretending I hadn't heard every word. I realized then that denial was his weapon, and silence was his shield. But I wasn't going to let him hide forever. I decided I wouldn't confront him yet. Instead, I would watch, I would gather proof, and when the time came, I would show him that I knew everything. Over the next week, I studied him. I noticed the way he left early, the way he dressed better on certain days, the faint smell of perfume clinging to his shirt. I checked the phone whenever I could, reading each message until the words blurred through my tears. The more I saw, the stronger my resolve grew. I wasn't going to fall apart quietly. I wasn't going to be the woman he thought I was, blind, weak, dependent. No, I was going to choose the right moment, and when I did, he would never forget it. The night I finally chose to confront him, the air in our house felt heavy, like even the walls knew what was about to happen. I cooked dinner, just like I always did, though my hands shook as I chopped the vegetables. I set the table, lit a candle, and waited for him to come home. He walked in with that same smile he always wore, kissed my cheek, and sat down across from me as if nothing in the world was wrong. But my heart knew the truth. My stomach twisted with the weight of every message, every call, every lie. We ate in silence. He asked about my day, and I answered with words that sounded hollow even to my own ears. When he reached for the bread, I stopped him with a single question that hung in the air, like thunder. "Who is she?" My voice was calm, but it carried the sharpness of a blade. His hand froze midair. For a moment, his face was blank, then he laughed nervously. "What are you talking about?" he said, his voice too light, too forced. I stared into his eyes, refusing to blink, refusing to let him slip away behind another excuse. "Don't lie to me," I whispered. "I know about the phone. I know about the messages. I know everything." His fork clattered against the plate. His eyes widened, then narrowed, as if he was deciding whether to fight or surrender. He leaned back in his chair, his lips pressed into a thin line. "You shouldn't have gone through my things," he said coldly, as if I were the one who had broken something sacred. The words struck me harder than I expected. For a moment, I almost lost my strength, almost believed I was the intruder in my own marriage. But then the fire inside me roared. "Don't you dare twist this on me," I snapped, my voice rising. "You're the one who betrayed me. You're the one who lied every single night while I lay next to you. You're the one who made me doubt myself." He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor, his face flushed with anger. "You don't understand," he shouted. "It's not what you think." Tears blurred my vision, but I refused to look away. "Then tell me," I demanded, slamming my hand on the table. "Tell me who she is. Tell me why you've been calling her in the middle of the night. Tell me why you call her beautiful, why you tell her she's your only. Tell me why, after all these years, I wasn't enough." The silence that followed was worse than any answer. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes darted to the floor, to the wall, anywhere but at me. My chest caved in as the truth revealed itself without words. His silence was confession enough. I pushed away from the table and walked to the drawer. My hands no longer trembled. I pulled out the phone and threw it across the table, where it slid to a stop in front of him. "Here," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Read them out loud. Every message. Read them like you read them to her. Let me hear it in this house." His face paled. He didn't move. The phone sat between us like a weapon, loaded with every lie he had ever told. He finally sat down again, his shoulders slumping. He buried his face in his hands. "I made a mistake," he muttered, his voice small, broken. "It wasn't supposed to mean anything." The words sent a bitter laugh from my lips. "Not supposed to mean anything," I whispered, shaking my head. "You risked our marriage, our life, everything we built, for something that didn't mean anything." My voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the weight of betrayal. I stood there, watching him crumble, watching the man I once loved look smaller than I had ever seen him. And for the first time, I realized the power wasn't his anymore, it was mine. The lies he spun, the walls he built, the shadows he hid in, none of them mattered now. Because I had the truth, and the truth burned brighter than any secret he could hide. That night, I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't scream, didn't beg. I simply gathered the pieces of myself and walked away from the table. His voice followed me down the hall, calling my name, begging me to listen, but I didn't. I locked the bedroom door and sat in the darkness, my heart racing with both pain and clarity. For the first time in weeks, I felt strangely alive, as if facing the fire had burned away the fog. I knew this wasn't the end. No, this was only the beginning. The morning after our confrontation, the house felt colder than it had ever been. The walls that once echoed with laughter now carried nothing but silence. He tried to act as if things were normal, as if we had only argued about something small, like money or chores. He brewed his coffee, buttoned his shirt, and looked at me with eyes that begged for forgiveness without ever speaking the words. But I wasn't ready to forgive. I wasn't even ready to listen. I was ready for something else. All night I had thought about what he had done, about the lies, about the phone that still sat like poison in the drawer. My tears had dried on my cheeks, leaving behind only resolve. If he could live 2 lives, then I could live one that didn't include him. But I wasn't going to walk away quietly. No. I wanted him to feel what I felt. I wanted him to taste the bitterness of betrayal, to know what it was like to wake up and find the person you loved most had torn your world apart. I started with the phone. When he left for work, I took it, copied every message, every picture, every word he had shared with her. I saved them in a folder on my laptop, every piece of evidence carefully organized. I knew I could confront the woman directly, but that wasn't my plan. She wasn't the one who had made vows to me. He was. She wasn't the one who promised forever. He was. My revenge wouldn't be about her. It would be about showing him that actions have consequences, that lies don't stay hidden forever. That evening, I cooked his favorite meal. The smell filled the house, familiar and warm like old times. He walked in, surprised, his face lighting up with hope. He thought I had forgiven him, thought I was ready to move past it. He sat at the table eagerly, and when I placed the food in front of him, he reached for my hand. But I pulled away. "Eat," I said softly. He hesitated, then obeyed, taking a bite, smiling as if things were finally going back to the way they were. Then I placed my laptop on the table and opened the folder. The screen glowed with every message, every photo, every word of betrayal. His smile faded instantly. His fork clattered against the plate as he stared at the evidence, his face draining of color. "Where did you?" he started, but I cut him off. "You left it all for me to find," I said coldly. "You thought you were clever, hiding it in a drawer. But lies always find a way out. And now, you get to see what they look like, out in the open, where you can't hide." He stammered, his voice breaking. "Please, it was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I leaned forward, my eyes locking onto his. Mistakes are forgetting an anniversary. Mistakes are leaving the lights on. Cheating isn't a mistake. It's a choice. And you made that choice every time you picked up that phone. He begged, pleaded, even tried to reach for me, but I stood tall, stronger than I had ever felt. I wasn't the broken woman who had cried on the bathroom floor. I was someone new, someone who knew her worth. I told him I wanted him out. I wanted him to pack his things and leave the house we had built together. His face twisted in shock, as if the idea of losing me had never occurred to him. But I was done. I wasn't going to share my life with a man who had already given his heart to someone else. When he left that night, suitcase in hand, I watched from the doorway. His car disappeared down the street, swallowed by the darkness. The house was quiet, but for the first time, it didn't feel like a cage. It felt like mine again. The silence was no longer heavy, it was freeing. In the weeks that followed, he tried to come back. He sent flowers, left voicemails, begged for another chance. But I didn't waver. Every time I looked at those messages, every time I remembered the sound of his voice, whispering love to someone else, I knew I had made the right choice. Slowly, the pain began to fade. I found myself again in the small things, in the morning light through the window, in the taste of coffee sipped in peace, in the laughter of friends who reminded me that I wasn't alone. One evening, I opened the drawer again. The phone was still there, silent now, dead from lack of charge. I picked it up, held it one last time, and then I threw it into the trash. It was over. The phone had once been a weapon, a symbol of betrayal, but now it was nothing more than plastic and glass. It had no power over me anymore. I learned something through all of this. Love is not blind. It sees everything, but it chooses to believe, to hope, to trust. And when that trust is broken, it's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of something new. I realized that my worth was never tied to his choices, that my life was bigger than his betrayal. If you ask me now, I don't regret finding that phone. I don't regret the pain, the tears, or even the confrontation, because it taught me that I was stronger than I ever knew, that I had a voice that couldn't be silenced, and that I deserved a love that was real, not one built on lies. And maybe one day, he'll sit alone with the weight of his choices, remembering the home he lost, the woman who walked away, and the silence of a drawer that once hid the truth.